Former UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya has been arrested at JFK Airport just days removed from his UFC 281 loss. Reports say that Adesanya was in possession of brass knuckles, which are illegal in New York. Passengers of the JFK Airport are allowed to have brass knuckles stored away in checked luggage, but they are not allowed to have them in their carry-on baggage. Adesanya was arrested at approximately 1:57 Eastern Standard Time. Tim Simpson of Paradigm Sports released a statement. Israel was handed a gift by a fan, which he put in his luggage. When flagged at the airport, Israel quickly disposed of the item and cooperated with authorities. Diaz complied accordingly. With that, the matter was dismissed and he was on his way home. Adesanya has been released and is on his way home, and this all just seems like an unfortunate addition to what has already been a difficult and stressful time for the former champion. Adesanya has been dealing with a training camp to take on a man who's already defeated him twice, and then he lost to this man again. And on top of that, he's had so much media work to do before and after the event. Though Stylebender has kept his spirits high, we can't help but feel like this instance was life kicking him while he's down. Kamaru Usman wasn't set to fight on the UFC 281 card, but he almost threw down for free in the bag. Usman and Kevin Holland were seen pressing each other. Thankfully, a whole mob of people were backstage to stop things from escalating to a full-on fistfight. But to be honest, we wouldn't have minded seeing that scrap. Kevin Holland stood his ground and let Usman know that he's not scared of him. Holland then repeatedly calls Usman an actor. We think that this altercation may have been the product of Kevin Holland making a joke about Kamaru Usman's performance in the newest Marvel film, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Holland joked that Usman was supposed to have a big role in the film, including a scene where he head kicked someone, but they had to take it out after Leon Edwards defeated Usman via head kick back in August.
Usman's a great athlete, great fighter. I heard they took out his, he actually had a bigger role in Wakanda, but I heard they took it out because his role was him head kicking somebody and then he got head kicked. So it was just kind of like one of those things where they didn't want to fucking do that. So, I messed with his head. So, yeah.
Kevin Holland is not one to hold back any thoughts. In fact, his loud mouth is what stopped his UFC career before it started, but ironically, then boosted his star power once Dana White finally let him into the company. When talking to Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience in early 2021, Holland even then expressed his dislike of Kamaru Usman. He told Rogan that he doesn't like Usman for not claiming Arlington, Texas, the way that he should. Usman wrestled at Bowie High School in Arlington. Holland added, "I'm just a different guy from a different place. Where I'm from, if you don't claim where you're from, you don't get respect from me." Holland did praise Usman for being a good fighter, but wouldn't use the phrase great to describe him, or anyone for that matter. Just good. None of these guys are great. They all think they're great, There's like a top of the mountain, right? I was talking to Stylebender about this shit. There's a top of the mountain. They all think they're at the top of the effing mountain. There's no such thing as the top of the mountain. If you think you're at the top of the mountain, that means your mountain is stopping at a certain spot and someone else's mountain is gonna get higher than that. He further went on about Usman not being great. Usman is a very good fighter. Great fighter? No. He couldn't go out there and win a boxing match. He couldn't go out there and out-wrestle the best wrestler. He couldn't go out there and do the best against the best of everybody. Critical? Yes, but hey, that's why fans love Holland. That and his fan-friendly style and crime-fighting abilities. The havoc wasn't just in the back halls of the Madison Square Garden, but outside of it too. If we had a board that kept track of days since Nate Diaz had slapped somebody, it would be a full-time job erasing that thing and marking it as 0. Nate Diaz and his crew had a run-in with Dylan Dennis at UFC 281. Dennis is most recognized for his work in the jiu-jitsu world, which led him into the mainstream whenever he began working with Conor McGregor. Obviously, McGregor and Diaz haven't seen eye to eye much, and that put a wedge between Dennis and Diaz. The two were seen exchanging words, but then things got physical. Someone next to Dennis began mouthing off and stepping forward, and Diaz turned his attention to this man. However, he must have not known that Nate is indeed that guy. And by that guy, we mean the kind of guy that's famous for putting palm to face. Nate used the middle finger to set up a slap that forced this man to take a few steps back. The crowd erupted, but thankfully, things didn't turn into another Strikeforce brawl.
That's all I'm asking you. Hey, hands on me, baby. Hands on me, baby. No, I think I'm too close to him.
Speaking of slap, Dana White has taken a rather unconventional step into the slap fighting world, and the MMA community is not having it at all. An ambitious business venture, to say the least. White has some skin in the slapping world now. Power Slap is a promotion run by Dana White, but he won't be playing the same role there as he does in the UFC. For those that are familiar, this sport is where two opponents stand across from each other and, well, take turns slapping one another. Whatever Dana White sees in the sport, the MMA community simply does not. Comments are raining in about how the sport is just flat out not safe. MMA has its fair share of head trauma involved, but defense is indeed an option. With slap fighting, well, it's looked at as CTE served on a silver platter that is Dana White's involvement. What do you think? Is this a step backward for the MMA community, or is it getting an unreasonable amount of hate?